The jewelry box sat on the top shelf of Emily's closet, pushed behind a stack of sweaters she never wore. It was small and square, darker at the corners from years of handling. A tiny violin was carved into the lid, and a thin, purfling line ran round the edge, simple and elegant, like someone had wanted it to feel like music. Emily had not opened it in a long time. She took it down anyway. She blew dust off the lid and set it on the dresser. Afternoon light caught particles and made them drift in the air. Emily rested her palm on the lid. It was not locked. It never had been. That did not make it easier. "I was going to bring it back," she said quietly to the empty room. Her thumb traced the purfling line once around the lid, then paused over the carved violin. The moment her skin met the worn wood, a memory rose like it had been waiting. Not the whole house, just the living room, just the piano, just the soft scrape of Bethany's bow when she adjusted her grip. Emily could see herself at the bench, feet barely reaching the pedals. Bethany stood beside her, violin tucked under her chin, serious, the way kids get when something matters. They played duets for years. Sometimes they were good. Sometimes they fell apart halfway through, and they laughed until their mom told them to be quiet. But they always started over. They always found each other again on the next downbeat. Emily liked the piano because it made sense. Patterns, order, a place for every note. Bethany liked the violin because it sounded like a voice. When it was happy, it sang. When it was sad, it did not pretend otherwise. They grew up thinking the music would always be there, and then they got older. College did not break them all at once. It just thinned them out. Emily took a campus job in the lab. Nothing glamorous. Gloves, labels, careful steps, clean counters. She liked the predictability of it, the quiet hum of machines, the way the work asked for steadiness. Bethany lived by classes, rehearsal times, and practice rooms, always moving. They still tried to keep one thing sacred, their duets. When they could, they met in a practice room. Bethany would pull out her violin. Emily would sit at whatever upright piano was available. They would put the music on the stand between them like it was a bridge. But the bridge started to feel narrow. Bethany began getting opportunities, not just compliments, real invitations, a featured part, a small audition, a solo moment in a student concert. Emily was proud of her. She really was. And still, something started to sting. It was not jealousy. It was the feeling of being needed less. The night it broke was not dramatic. That is what made it worse. Bethany rushed into the practice room late, hair messy from the wind, cheeks flushed. She set her case down and pulled out a new piece of music. Fresh pages, no pencil marks, no corners softened by shared use. "They asked me to do a feature," she said, trying to sound casual. Her eyes gave her away. Emily smiled. "That is great." Bethany nodded, flipping through the pages. "It is right before the ensemble piece, just a few minutes." Emily glanced at the duet music already on the stand. Their duet, the one they would been working on for weeks. Bethany hesitated, and Emily felt it. "I think I should do it alone," Bethany said. Emily did not answer right away. She looked at the duet pages, then back at Bethany. "Alone," she repeated. Bethany rushed to explain. "It is not because of you. They just want it to be clean, simple. Just me and the violin." Emily heard the part Bethany did not mean to say. "You do not fit here." Emily kept her voice calm. "Sure." Bethany frowned. Emily pressed the duet pages flat with her hand, like she could smooth the moment. "Do not worry about it. Do what you need to do. That is not what I..." Bethany took a breath, frustration rising. "Why do you always do this?" Emily looked up. The hurt had been sitting under her ribs for months. "Because you do not listen," Emily said. "You decide what is happening, and I am supposed to just adjust." Bethany's jaw tightened. "That is not fair." Emily laughed once, sharp and small. is not it? Bethany said the line she regretted as soon as it left her mouth. Why do you always make it about you? Emily's face went still, and then Emily said hers. Because you forget to include me until you need me. You do not need me anymore. The room went quiet. Bethany opened her mouth, then closed it, looked down. Emily watched her do it, and felt something inside her harden. Fine, she thought. I have my life to live. I will leave first. Emily grabbed the duet music off the stand. The pages caught. A corner tore with a soft rip. She froze with the torn piece in her hand. Bethany saw it too. Neither of them said anything. Emily packed that night and left before morning. On her way out, she passed the dresser and saw the jewelry box. Square, small, the carved violin on the lid, the purfling line that made it feel like more than a box. She told herself she was borrowing it, just borrowing, something to prove she had not cut the whole tie. She slipped it into her bag and left without looking back. At first, the distance felt like relief. Emily transferred and finished school, kept working labs, and learned quickly that medical facilities always needed steady hands. Contract work came next. 3 months here, 6 months there, new badge, new break room, new routine. She did her job well. She was never lost. When nighttime came, the noise died down, and the quiet was loud. Emily ate dinner alone, more than she admitted. She learned which stores were empty at night. She drove with the radio on even when she was not listening, just to keep the silence from settling. She kept her phone face down on the table, like it could not hurt her if she did not look. A few times, late at night, she stared at the contact name, Bethany, until her eyes blurred. Several times she almost hit call. When Bethany tried to connect, Emily could not bring herself to answer. Eventually, the calls stopped coming. Emily stopped calling home, not out of anger, out of shame. She did not know how to fix what she would done. She did not know how to say sorry without falling apart. So she kept moving, telling herself she would do it later, when she felt stronger. The jewelry box moved with her from apartment to apartment, sock drawers, bookshelves, the back of closets. She did not open it often. She did not have to. Some nights, she would place it on the bed and rest her palm on the lid. Her thumb would circle a furfling line once, then pause on the carved violin. It was a habit that did not solve anything, but it kept her from forgetting. Later became years. Somewhere along the line, she stopped praying, not in a dramatic way. It just faded, like a light left on in a room she no longer entered. Bethany stayed. She finished school. She married a kind man named Paul, steady and quiet. They had 2 kids, a boy and a girl. Life filled up with lunches, laundry, small routines that kept time moving. Bethany kept playing her violin, community concerts, outdoor festivals, church events. It was not about fame. It was about staying connected to something she could still feel. Sometimes late at night, she would open a drawer and take out an old photo. 2 girls at a piano, laughing like the world could not break them. And she prayed. It was not fancy. It was simple. Keep her safe. Bring her back. Emily had only been in this new town a few weeks. New apartment, new routes to the grocery store, new streets she walked in the evenings to learn the shape of the place. She was not lost, just lonely. One afternoon, she saw a flyer on a community board. Community summer concert, free admission. Paper was bright and ordinary, the kind of thing people glanced at, forgot. Emily stared at it too long. She walked away, but something pulled her back. On the evening of the concert, she left her apartment. On her way out, she took the jewelry box and slid it into her purse. The park was simple, an outdoor stage, folding chairs, families with blankets, kids running barefoot in the grass. Emily sat near the back edge, half hidden behind a row of chairs, like she did not have the right to take up space. She took out her phone and scrolled through old photos until she stopped on one of her and Bethany at the piano. The orchestra warmed up, notes floated and dropped. Someone laughed. A child clapped at the wrong time, and no one cared. Emily almost left, and then the warm-up stopped sounding like practice. A single violin line rose clear and steady over the noise. Emily froze. Not because it was beautiful, though it was, because it was familiar, not the melody, the phrasing, the tiny pauses, the way the bow lifted at the end, like a signature. On stage, Bethany had her violin under her chin, tuning, older, more mature than Emily remembered, calm, serene. Paul sat in the crowd with their kids, one tucked close, the other leaning forward like the music was pulling them in. Emily's chest tightened, her fingers closed around her purse strap. The box inside felt heavier than it should have. She almost left, guilty, then she stayed, entranced. The concert moved through its program. People clapped. The sky deepened. The park lights blinked on. The MC announced the final number. Then the conductor stepped forward and signaled the orchestra. The orchestra settled. The crowd quieted. Bethany stepped to the solo spot and lifted her violin, prepared to begin. The last piece started, fuller than the warm-up, the kind of music that gathers people into the same breath. Bethany closed her eyes, fully immersed. Emily stood very still, afraid that if she shifted, she would break whatever thread had led her here. The orchestra reached the final phrase. Bethany's bow rose and fell with steady confidence, and then, all too soon, it ended. The last note landed and held for a heartbeat. Emily stood. Applause started. Normal, polite, because that is what you do when a piece ends. Bethany opened her eyes, and in the space between the final note and the applause growing louder, she felt it. A presence. A pull. She looked out across the crowd, past faces she did not know, and saw Emily at the edge of the chairs, standing like someone who did not believe she was allowed to be there. Bethany's breath caught. She took one step back from the solo spot. The conductor leaned slightly toward her, confused. Bethany did not bow, did not smile. She turned and left the stage, down the steps, like the music had suddenly pointed somewhere else. The applause thinned, uncertain, as people noticed. A few claps ocked mid-air. Orchestra members glanced at one another. The conductor's baton lowered slowly, like he was not in control anymore. Paul moved forward to the bottom of the steps. Bethany handed him her violin without a word. He took it, carefully, eyes searching her face. Bethany stepped onto the grass, moved past him, and walked straight toward Emily. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "Is she okay? What is happening? Was that planned?" Emily could not move. Bethany stopped a few feet away, as if the space between them still belonged to 10 years of silence. All the speeches Emily had built in her head disappeared. "I missed you," Emily whispered. Bethany's face tightened, and for a heartbeat Emily thought she might turn away. Instead, Bethany stepped forward and pulled her into an embrace, so firm it felt like an answer. Emily held on like she had been trying not to drown for years. For a second, the whole park stayed quiet, and then the applause came back, louder, fuller, because people finally understood. Not the details, just the shape of it. Someone had come home, and 2 small bodies ran up and wrapped around Bethany's legs. Bethany bent to gather them close, laughing and crying at the same time. Emily stepped back instinctively, suddenly afraid she did not fit in this picture. Bethany reached out without looking and took Emily's hand. "This is your family too," she said quietly. She turned to the kids. "This is your Aunt Emily." The children looked up at Emily like she was not a problem to solve, just a person to welcome. They hugged her. And something inside Emily finally loosened. A little later, when the crowd had thinned and the light had turned soft, Emily pulled the jewelry box from her purse, square, worn. The carved violin smoothed by years of touch. Bethany stared at it, and Emily saw the moment land. "I told myself I was borrowing it," Emily said, "so I would not forget you." Bethany took the box carefully. Her thumb traced the furling line, then the carved violin. She did not open it. She did not need to. She looked past Emily toward the stage, where the piano sat quiet, now that the concert was over. "You remember?" Bethany asked. Emily swallowed. "I remember." Bethany's smile was small. "Then come on." Bethany took Emily's hand and pulled her toward the stage. Bethany turned back toward Paul. He was already there at the edge of the grass. He stepped forward and placed the violin back in her hands at a word. Then he nodded once, like he was giving permission to a moment that did not need explaining. Emily followed Bethany back to the stage, unsure where this would lead. A few people were still packing up. A few were halfway out of the park. Bethany lifted her violin. Emily sat on the piano bench. Her hands hovered over the keys like they were meeting an old friend. Bethany looked at her the way she used to. "Ready?" Emily nodded once, and the music began. They started softly, almost careful. The first notes were not perfect. Their timing wavered like two people learning how to trust again. Then the melody found them and began to flow. The harmonies settled in. The music said what they could not. People stopped walking and listened. A small group gathered near the stage again, drawn by the sound of something real. Emily glanced up mid-phrase and saw Bethany's eyes shining, not accusing, not guarded, just tears that did not need hiding. When the last note ended, the applause rose warm and steady, not the loud kind, the kind that says, "We witnessed something sacred." Emily's hands stayed on the keys a second longer, the sound lingering in the air. Bethany lowered her violin with a broad smile. She reached over and squeezed Emily's shoulder, a familiar, loving gesture. Home was not a place you earned. Home was a space love kept open. Emily looked out at the trees, the lights, the people standing a little closer than before, and for the first time in 10 years, she did not feel like she was passing through. She felt like she had been brought back home.